Hello everybody and welcome to a basic indicator video that is part of the basic indicator series where we go over simple indicators for trading. Okay, now in this video what we're going to do is cover the basics of supports and resistances. Okay, what we're going to do is identify how they go about in our charts, what they're used for, how you would go about finding them, and then we're going to actually apply it onto the charts and see the significance of them. Okay, so the first thing is, what are supports and resistances? Now, what we're looking for is horizontal supports and resistances. So essentially it's a horizontal line on the chart where it either stops the price from rising or from falling. Okay, so a support is a level, a horizontal, that holds up the price and stops it from continuing downwards. Okay, so what it is that it's an area of demand where people, more traders, are interested in that area to buy it up. So to purchase this pair that you're dealing with at that price. Okay, now for a resistance, it's the opposite idea. It is where the traders are willing to sell and therefore it prevents the price from rising. Okay, now what it can be considered as is the resistance is kind of like a roof. When you're trying to rise, you can only rise so much and you hit your head on the roof. On the contrary, support is kind of like your floor where it stops you from falling kind of indefinitely downwards, right? Now, what I really like about supports and resistances is that it gauges the psychological aspect of trading as to where people are thinking about buying or selling or areas that pique people's interest, right? Now, when it comes to these supports and resistances, how I identify them is I typically look for a range, okay? I look for two horizontal lines. And the reason for that is because when it comes to trading, nothing is definite. And it's not very strict as to where exactly the price is going to stop or to continue, right? Now, what I like to do is I look for areas where multiple candles, either their wicks line up or their bodies line up. Okay, so I'm going to show you what it means to be a wick or a body. So if we go, for instance, and we look at these, each of these things here that you see are called a candle. Okay, so we have candles here, which we'll be explaining into a candles video, which will be linked in the description below. But essentially what we're looking for is where these lines, the wicks, line up. For instance, if we do one on the chart, we can draw a horizontal. We see right here, let's pull out an arrow. We see right here, the wick hits one line, and this one, when you pair them up, it hits the same spot, right? So there's 2 points of contact, and I can consider that a piece of, in this case, support, because the price falls on it and doesn't go any lower. Now do note that we do have another hit from here, from the wick right here, which adds more importance to this support level. Now I don't just stop here. Again, I said there's 2 lines that I look for. Now the second one, to make a range, is not very strict, but I typically just look around to see if there's another horizontal where multiple things hit it. So the reason I would put it right here is because we got one hit right here. Okay. We got a couple of the bodies around here, right? And then we have more wicks here, and kind of close by, there's one right here, this one, and finally one right here. Okay, so I got this range here, and again, it's not strict, right? So we saw the price of this candle go into this range, but in the end, nothing fell below here, right? Same idea as to here and right here, right? But do keep in mind that, again, even though this is a support, it does have chances of breaking a little bit, but in general, it held the prices to go up each time, right? Now that's how I would go about making a support. Now a resistance is quite frankly the same way as strategy. So what I would do is I'd look for wicks on the top side instead of the bottom. I look for the top side. Maybe we can look right here. There's one right here and one right here. And if I do, it draws all the way here. So I can draw something like this, right? It gets this one slightly off of this one, and it does kind of get this area here. Now the next one I can do is something like this. I would put it based on the body top right here, right here, right here, and which is also in confluence with this wick right here, right? Now, so this is our resistance, as you can see, that we have just formed by using the 2-line kind of strategy, right? So this area is a level of supply, which pushes the price down each time it hit it. Even right here, you can see there's a wick that pushed down, but do note that if I continue to pull out the time, right, it looks like we broke that resistance level, but it comes back down. Okay, now this is something called a swing fail pattern. It's a similar idea to the downside. So if this price hit below but came back up, that's called a swing fail pattern, where you thought it broke the resistance, but in general it actually still came back down. Okay, now if we zoom out, the reason why it is very important to have these resistances and supports and to keep them on the chart is because eventually they're used again later. Okay, notice that we did break the resistance, but there's something called an SR flip, a support resistance flip. So what that means is once something has been treated as resistance, okay, when the price breaks it, we typically see some sort of test of it to be treated as a support instead. Same would be for the supports, where if you fall on it, you count that as a support, but if the price breaks further down, now we can consider that level of resistance. So if the price came back up, it would hit it as resistance. For instance, we can just draw it. Let's see, this is support, right? So we're just bouncing a couple times, and if we break it, now what happens is it reverses from being a support into resistance. So now we have resistance, right? It acts as resistance, and that's the same idea here. We had that resistance here, but now it's support. Okay. Another reason I said why it's important to keep those charts on, those horizontals, is because even though right here it seemed like the price action was straying far from this level, and it seems like, oh, we can ignore it, but eventually with that descent that came, we did get stopped right here at this level of support before blasting right off. And again, even afterwards, even after we hit the highs of $66,000, $67,000, right? We did see a close wick that came to this level and a test here before we did break it down. Now, even as of right now, we see multiple stops around it right here too as resistance, but it's a little bit choppy around this area, okay? But that's the important thing. You can identify it from a long time ago, but it still acts as a key level to pay attention to, okay? Now, we can go about through all our charts, and do notice that you will find multiple areas that you can identify as a support and or a resistance. But the thing is, you want to make sure that it is pretty critical where the price action does make significant changes or has repeatedly bounced off of there, because otherwise it might be kind of like a faulty level. Like you can't just say this level right here would be a level of, actually that could work, but like for instance this one right here, right? If we drew this as a resistance, we notice that it just kind of just blew past it multiple times, right? Like even though we do have a few wicks here, it seems kind of inconsistent with this break here, and the break here, and just a quick break here and whatever, you know what I mean? This is not too good of an example, but essentially you want to pay attention to what it is that you identify as your supports and resistances. Have them on your charts. You can even look in the past for those levels, and you'll be able to trade off of them. You can pair it with a great strategy, and you'll be able to trade very well with it. Otherwise, if you just look at it, it just seems like little levels of horizontal levels that kind of support and resist the price action. But anyways, that is it when it comes to supports and resistances. Hope you all learned something from this and can apply it for yourselves. Alrighty, that's it for this video. Cheers. Please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more videos like this one, and continue to watch the rest of our videos within this series. Cheers.